So today's discussion will be mostly about starting a project. I've asked you this week to come up with an idea of something that you can do for the next 10 weeks. And you have 10 weeks of school left. Well, how do I learn how to make interfaces is to practice. Like I said in the past, what I used to have done is I would give the class a assignment that they all had to work on, which tended to work okay. But I kind of left it open to you to choose what you want to do. Which last semester I did that and it worked okay also. So in this case, I think what I'm trying to say is I want you to really think about what you want to do and dive into it and make something that you feel proud of. This is not like a math class where you have to go and take a test. This is something that should be fun and exciting and something interesting that you want to do. Drawing about ideas, thinking about questions to ask people, thinking about color, thinking about typography, thinking about icons, things like that. So our reading today is starting a project, meeting with the client, and asking questions. So I guess the point here is that most of what we do as designers is ask questions. Okay, why does this not work, or how can we make this better? These are questions that we ask each other. If you remember the video from the first week of school, there was a UX design video from a British guy, and he was putting in, as he was drawing, the UX design process, and he kept drawing on the board and drawing on the board. And he says, while he's drawing on the board, if you're a person who likes to ask questions, this is right for you. But basically what we're doing is asking questions all the time when as designers. Does this color work in this interface? Is this typography going to work? And asking questions of other people and listening to what they have to say. I think one of the biggest problems I have as a person is I tend to talk all the time. I don't sit back and listen. More people, if you listen, you might make a good designer. I'm not very good because I talk too much and I like to stick my thoughts into everything. Okay, so a good listener is important. So before you start a project, you need to ask a lot of questions, right? A lot of questions. We looked at some of the samples that you showed last class. Hey, this is something I might want to do for this final project, right? And you brought up a website. Okay, so the questions I'm thinking of today are not necessarily questions of the design itself. I think today's questions are a why. Why am I doing this, right? Why redesign this? What was your site?
Ugly Tub.
Tubs or something? What? No.
My website?
Yeah, the one that you
Ugly Tub.
Uglytub.com. Remember that last week? I think today's question more is why? Why is there an uglytub.com on the internet anyways? What is it for? And so, the questions you should be asking yourself right at this point would be, is it to sell something? Is it to provide information to somebody? Maybe it's a little selling and providing information. Maybe it's for a buyer and not necessarily for the general public, right? So, asking those questions probably first are important. You as a designer, you look at the Ugly Tub and say, is this even something I want to follow through? Is this the right project for you? Okay. So this is a list of questions you would ask somebody when you meet them the first time as far as a designer and somebody who's looking for a thing. But I know it's kind of hard for us to have that scenario because we really don't have a client in front of us, but we can start thinking about what you would ask. Therefore, asking the questions may help you build something new, right? And it can be totally opposite. Maybe she thinks the uglytub.com, the way they have it on their website might be, hey, I'm just giving information about my tubs and why they're great. But maybe you come along and say, hey, wouldn't it be great if you could just buy a tub online? So you can evolve whatever you come up with. Like last semester, I had a student who wanted to redesign the Lucky self-checkout. Okay, she wanted, so she came up with a new interface and a new kiosk. Even she redesigned the kiosk even, and the icons inside the kiosk. But her number one part, and the reason why she wanted to do it, is the way that they do fruit at the self checkout. Right? You have to go and you put some fruit in some bags, and you come along, and then you put it on the thing to weigh it, and then you have to go and try and find the code. And you're like, well, you don't know what kind of fruit you got. I don't know what kind of oranges I got. Did I get the organic oranges? Did I get the regular oranges? And you have to go through, and it's tedious. And she came up with a solution of that. You can have a chip. I don't know, I forget what kind of chip she was talking about, but it was an RFD kind of chip or something. And it would be at the location of where you got the fruit. And then, for somehow, I can't remember how she did it, but when you kind of, not really checked it out, but you told the chip what kind of fruit you had before you got to the counter, and then the self checkout knew what fruit you had before you got there or something like that. I can't remember exactly how. She knew the technical ways of figuring it out, but it sped up the whole process. You just weighed it. You didn't have to go and search because the chip told the device what kind of fruit you had already. I can't remember. I'd have to read it. I think it was it was kind of interesting way of thinking. So she came up with a solution to something that might not even have been there in the original interface anyways. So what I'm trying to say to you is, you can be creative, think of things that are a lot different than what might be currently existing. And how could that be done? Well, of course, it's by asking questions. Why do we ask questions? Well, to solve a problem, right? There was the problem of what was wrong with the original interface. It was tedious, having to search and look for the different fruit, right? So asking questions helps. So let's read a little bit here. I think that the important part of when you start a project is to try and find out as much information as you can in general up front. And then, of course, make sure it's something that you want to do. I've signed up to do several projects that I probably shouldn't have done in my past, or I've kind of you as a designer, as a freelance designer, you'll end up running into people that are asking you to do things, and then you think up front, hey, that was a good idea, but after you started working with them, you find out they're crazy, and you should have never started in the first place. That's where meeting somebody and talking to them is very important to find out if that is something you want to do. I've run into several mistakes. I don't know how to point it out. You'll make your own mistakes in life too. Again, it's important, I think, to meet with somebody. I know there's a lot of online business that goes on online, and that tends to it works sometimes, but and a lot of times it's very difficult. I talk a lot with Sam, the guy who teaches the HTML class right now, Sam Ajam, and he has a lot of clients that are all around the United States. He works with people from all the East Coast, and they do everything online. He makes their website without even meeting them. But I can tell by talking to him about all the problems that he runs into doing that. You know what I mean? It's really difficult. So as a designer, if you can meet somebody face to face, I think it's very important. That's why in this class, I'm going to have you come up here and you're going to talk to all of us about your project. Probably going to do that every week. We're going to have a little progress that you come up here every week and you show us your progress. You're going to bring up your drawings on the board on the big screen and you're going to tell us why you drew it the way you want to draw it. So we're meeting, we're talking. That's the best way, at least for me, that I can think of that you were going to be able to help you. Let's talk about questions that you ask. Of course, probably the most important question that you ask any client, or you ask yourself, is what is the goal? Right? A lot of the times the client doesn't know the goal. They might not know the goal. And I should have given you, what I wanted to do is of course, I have this fabulous website that's been haunting me for years. Okay. I had 2 students design this for me about 4 years ago. Now they want to change their goal. right? They want to change their goal. I mean, the original goal of this was to provide information mostly to the general public. I don't sell any products online. I don't. We don't. Most of the people that actually go there, there's two groups of people that go here. Somebody who's looking for a product and what it does. Some people are looking for support for the product, and then there is actually one more person, somebody who's a buyer, because mostly who we sell to is we don't sell to the general public. We sell in the store. So who puts the products in the store? A buyer, somebody who buys in bulk for the corporation. So there's people out there, they're called buyers. What they do is they'll buy 10,000 of these for Home Depot at a certain price, because they get they buy 10,000 of them, you get a cut on the price there, and then they ship it to Home Depot. Home Depot puts it on there. So the buyer is the other one. So goals. They want to actually have this website cater to the buyer, cater to the general public, and cater to I can't remember what else they wanted to cater to. So they have like 3 new goals for this, which this isn't meeting right now. And how do I know that? Well, they said it to me, so I don't know. Talking about the goals and what is the important part of what they want to do. And I think that the downfall is you'll meet a lot of clients who don't have these things written down. I meet so many people that say to me, "Oh, I know I want to make a website." Okay, well, why? Why do you want to make a website? Well, just because I want to have a website and I think I need one. You're like, oh, that's not a goal. Just because I think I need one. Okay. So when you're coming up with your project, you should be able to clearly identify why you're doing this. What is the purpose of it? It can be different. That's my whole point earlier. Is it can be different than the original intention of what the project is. The tub, the ugly tub thing. Make it totally different. Maybe you come up with a better solution than what they're coming up with. You know what I mean? You're not there. You're just using that as a topic. That's what I'm trying to say. With all of you, any of your projects that you come up with, I want you to be creative and go beyond what is originally there. Think of a better goal, maybe. The self-checkout, a better goal, right? Hey, quicker way to get my fruit into my food, into my mouth, right? That's the goal for me, get food into my mouth. A lot of it might be connecting with people. A lot of what we have today online is all about social media. Boy, it's hard to avoid the social media now. Everybody's about connecting to social media. That's like one of the number one topics you talk to people today. Hey, do you have your Facebook page? Hey, do you want to connect it? You got your Twitter feed? You got your blog? So I don't know. These are questions that you could ask. And even if you don't have a client or an ugly, these are questions you ask yourself. So I'm going to actually ask you this week to write a bunch of questions down for your project. And then next week I'm going to actually have somebody else read those questions while they look at what idea you want to have. So think about your questions. They may be for somebody else and not just for yourself. The important thing is if you are doing something for a specific client is to write those things down. I tend to not take a pen and paper when I go to a meeting. I go to these meetings here at West Valley all the time, and I'm the only person that shows up with not a pen and paper. Everybody's walking around like this. And you never write anything? Oh, I never forget a thing I tell them. But I do. I forget things all the time. It's because I'm lazy, I guess. But you should think about writing things down, especially if it's a client that you're going to design something for. They may say something that you're going to forget anyways. Okay, so if you are meeting a client for the first time, write it down. Maybe next week when we go to the Create-a-thon, right? Maybe I bring something along. Maybe I record it on my phone. Hey, this thing's the greatest thing ever. I can take pictures. You wouldn't believe how I go and I take pictures of things. I got to design that. That's why I asked you to take pictures of interfaces last week, right? It's great. Keep yourself a nice database of images and things as you go along. Taking pictures. Remember doing the screenshots on the computer, right? Remember I said, hey, take a screenshot of that. I have when we originally went back and we did this. I had screenshots of Nikon, I had screenshots of McDonald's, I had screenshots of Epson. Those are three websites that I was kind of, looking towards redesigning and taking those ideas and incorporating them into this site 5 years ago. That was a long time ago. So, those are things, taking images and things like that, writing things down. You need to be an information gatherer. How about that as a term? I don't know. There we go. The other most important thing is it's a collaboration between you and a client or a team. It's very hard to work with other people. I know we're all individual people. We all have egos. Me especially. You know. So being able to put your ego aside and looking into what somebody wants without your ego clouding your judgment. But again, you are hopefully the expert in the designing area. Therefore, you might need to make sure that you can clearly explain what would be a good solution for them, though, right? Because they're in there. They're coming to you and they're saying, "I know I need one. I might not know why, but I know I need one." And so you are the expert in some sense that you do need to maybe give them solutions. But again, it's a collaboration. Examples, like I was just saying, taking those samples, doing those screenshots. I think one of the problems that I see a lot of is a designer or a client will come to the designer and say, oh, I want it to look like this site. Oh, I want it to be like, this site. And they'll give you an example. But in the long run, the site that they're telling you what they want it to look like really might not be meet the goals is what I'm trying to say, So maybe they're just telling you that because they like the design of it and maybe not the goals of it. So be careful of, again, make sure you refer back to the goals that you talked about. A lot of times, they might not even know what they want. So then you ask them questions. Well, what are the kind of things that you like to watch on TV? That's why here's a little example I put down. Game of Thrones, right? What kind of TV shows do you like to watch? What type of news do you like to read? I don't know. You're trying to get a feel. You need to kind of put yourself out there also. You need to tell them a little bit about yourself, and they need to tell you a little bit about yourself when you're meeting with clients. Especially if they don't know what they want. Getting a feel of their style might be important. Of course, the location. A lot of times when I meet clients with Sam, we'll go and meet at the coffee shop. He likes to have a neutral place. So coffee shops are always good. Place that you have a connection, though. Sometimes it's hard to, if it's a business, going to the business is great. I don't have much to say about that. Let's move on. I think the number one goal, though, in all of us is that, again, this week is all about why. All about why. Why am I doing this? Why am I making this product? What is the product and why? And of course, the most important thing is who is going to use it. I think from the very beginning of this whole class we talked about, there were plenty of videos that talked about, user, who is the user of this interface. And the word user interface is all about user. Okay, so the persona, you're going to have to make a persona for your projects in this class. The persona is, again, going to be a list of the person who's going to use your interface, and that person is going to be clearly listed. And I think one of the problems I really have with sometimes I have students who really know what they want their users to be, and then sometimes I have students that come to me and say, "Oh yeah, it's everybody. My product's for everybody." But you can really, it might be for everybody, but there might be a specific audience that is more dominant than younger, older. I didn't put the senior one. I do want to have you do the senior reading. Maybe I'll try and link that up. I have this article about seniors and how to design for seniors and what kind of size font you should be using and so on and so on. And I think it's really important. I mean, think about it. The baby boomers are all retiring now. Boy, they have money well, some of them have money that they can spend on things. That's a good target audience right there. That's why if you're driving down the road, I know I don't have XM radio anymore, but I used to have XM radio. Before, I used to have XM radio, but now I'm driving down the road. There's all this 80s music on the radio today. They even have 80s radio station. Why is there an 80s radio station? Well, the people that were kind of growing up in the 80s, now they're in their 40s and 50s. They got the money, and that's why. They see that as a big audience. Hey, those are the people that are spending. Hence, I'm poor. I spend all my money. So, who is your target audience? How do they meet the goals of what you've discussed already? Again, the client might not even know who their audience is. Again, you're going to be asked, and I'll have some more information, but right now what I want you to do in your proposal writing this week I want you to write a general. I believe the audience for my tub is going to be contractors. They're 40 to 50-year-old men who go and put tubs in people's houses. That's who buys the ugly tub. I don't know. It's probably not going to be an 18-year-old kid. He doesn't care about what an ugly tub is. He just wants to be clean, probably. He doesn't care what kind of tub he's in. So you should be able to write these things down and think about them. Maybe the user of the site is not necessarily the content of the site. Hence, the user of the site in this scenario would be a contractor. Okay? He's not the general public. He's a contractor who wants to buy a tub to put in somebody else's house. But the user could also be the person who wants the tub in their house. Hey, I'm looking for a cool tub to be in my house. I don't know. I didn't really see the tubs, but as I'm visioning this, I think of my grandmother's house. My grandmother used to have one of those old tubs, those metal ones with the feet on it, right? Oh, I miss that cell. Yeah. Her house was ancient and falling apart, and we sold her for $8,000. Giant house. 5 bedrooms. Giant attic. So again, you should be able to break down your user of your interface down to age, gender, profession, and I'll give you a list of how to write that up once we get closer. You can look at some of the samples that I showed in the previous interface design samples. You saw them. Then again, when you're meeting a client, not necessarily up front, color or type, but what you can get is a sense, sort of by maybe, the type of TV shows. Trying to know who the person you're going to work with may help you with your typography and color. In order to find these things out, I tend to ask, what are the kind of designs you like, right? So this is where you're asking for samples. Even before I meet somebody, if somebody emails me and says, "Hey, I want you to work on this project for me," I say, "Hey, make sure you look at some samples and bring them in." Or, the best thing to do is to go on Google. I say, "Hey, go on Google. Find out who your competition is." There we go. Here's me. I'm always typing in stud finders. Look, this is Amazon right here. Amazon right here. Amazon. Amazon's evil. They bought this domain, comparingguru.com. And then when you go there, it's actually Amazon. Don't fool you. Amazon's evil. Again, Home Depot, Lowe's. Now, these aren't my competition. These are my customers. But what I'm trying to get from them, or when I talk to a client and say, go to Google and type in your product or something like that, it's trying them to get a sense of what the design field is like in that area. I mean, it can be totally different, but it's one way of going about research. Research is very important. Whoosh. Ugly. I don't know. We should have more discussion. Next week we'll have more discussion on research. I don't really have a lot of info right now. The other thing you probably should talk about is content. I think one of the biggest challenges that I come up with is, especially when you meet a client or start coming up with a new idea, is the people don't really have content. You won't believe how many people say, I know I need a website. I know I want it to be great. And I said, well, have you typed anything up? You got anything written down? Oh, it's all in their head. That's the biggest problem right there. Number one problem with meeting any client and doing a design job is they have all their ideas in their head. All their content is in their head. It needs to get down on paper somehow. That's the biggest challenge. It's for everybody too, not just for a small business or somebody wants to have a small website. I keep going back to it, but here it is, our famous website. This all needs rewritten. All the content needs reorganized. I have nobody that can do it. I'm not doing it. I'm here. Somebody else needs to do it. I'm just helping them. All this needs rewritten. All of it needs reorganized. So, I mean, even a small business like this has to have somebody coming and doing the content. You maybe need to hire a writer. I mean, they're ready to hire somebody to do this. They got a quote already for $25,000 to remake this website. They're willing to spend $30,000 at least to have somebody come in there and remake this website. It's a daunting task, and the task is mostly not necessarily, hey, they're willing to slap this into WordPress. Hey, it's easy to slap it. But where's all the work at? Rewriting, reorganizing, renavigating. That's where all the work is done. So content is like, whoosh, that's like most of the headache right there. Content. Again, you might have to hire a photographer. Taking those photos. If you look at any of the websites out there today, it's very photography heavy. Remember looking at the designs? We looked at Yahoo. We looked at all those designs. You might need to hire a writer. A database. Geez, everything needs to be in a database today. If it's not in a database, it should be in a database. Helps you organize. You might need to give them solutions. I think the other important thing about working with a client and working with a designer is you're the one giving them solutions. Hey, we could sign up for Google, Google database right there. It's a cloud-based database. We put all your data for everything that you do into the Google Cloud, and then we can pull it right out, right onto your website, right onto your spreadsheet. You can pull data right out of Google Cloud and put it right into Excel. Hey, you're providing solutions for them right there. I don't know. There's something about timing, staying in contact. I don't know. The other thing as far as research, again, you can't forget the archive.org, right? Greatest research ever. You put in the Wayback Machine. Maybe the client comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to redesign what? What do we want to redesign? We want to redesign the Yahoo website, right? You go in there, you put in your Yahoo, and then you go back to millions of years ago. Well, no, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And you can see, hey, what did it look like back in 2001 on March 1st? Or what is today? Whoosh, look at that. What did it look like? What is today? October 7th? Say October 7th? I think it is. Look at that. It was a Sunday back in 2001. That's what a Yahoo looked like. It was a directory, that's why. But of course today it's all very heavily photography. You know, people are used to it. You know, Netflix has changed our world, didn't it? We're all starting to use it. And same with YouTube, right? YouTube and Netflix, they're all very icon heavy. In fact, you can go to YouTube and they have a whole way of making the thumbnail. That thumbnail for the video is more important than the actual video itself. Right? You click on a video because of the cool thumbnail. So that's becoming very dominant. That's where, you know, hiring a photographer might be very important. Look at that. They're trying to get you to sign up for their free email right there at the top. Okay, let's look at what I want you to do for homework. Again, this reading, last class we talked about accessibility. There's reading right there that we talked about. This week we talked about questions you should ask an assignment, a client. Next week we're going to get back into, I know this week was mostly me talking about ideas and things like that. Next week we're going to get right back into the computer and working on the computer a little bit. I'm going to be talking about how to make navigational bars and planning them inside of Illustrator. Okay, and so you should read this over the weekend about navigational bars. You, as a person coming up with ideas for a project, you're going to have some way of people getting through the content of your idea. You know, how do I get from one section to the other? I don't know. There's a variety of different ways of doing that, from hyperlinks to sliding. You can slide things, right? A lot of things are sliding today because of the touch screen. Maybe instead of having navigation, you just have them slide across. I don't know. Think of game design. There's all kinds of interesting things in game design, and I wanted to talk about that, but I don't have time today. But next week we could talk about things like that. Again, we're going to talk a lot about navigation next week and how people get from one area of information to the other. Here's your reading right here. Make sure you read that. Here it is. It's pretty good. It talks a lot about, you know, using different words. I know we're used to home being a home, but does it have to be home? Could it be something else? You know, things like that. So think about that. And then this week I want you to do, I want you to continue with your idea that you're going to talk about today. Again, I want you to have a more overview. Remember, this is answering a why. Next week, you're going to be answering a what question. I'm going to be talking what next week. That's hence the navigation, right? What is the content going to be? Navigation and what go along together. But this week, I want you to think general. Why? What are the goals? Don't get bogged down in thinking of little things. Today, this week, when you're up here, you're talking to me, you're talking to all of us, you should be thinking grandiose. Why am I doing this? So I want you to type up an overview of why. I want you to maybe review, go back in time, use archive.org or something, and review. I want you to give us some solutions of why you would want to change this and make it better. Again, the solution could be something that's even different than what the current thing is. That was my whole point before with the checkout. And then I want you to come up with 15 questions you would ask your client. If you don't know what a question is that you would ask a client, go and look at my samples. All the students in previous classes, they came up with good lists. The one actually from Citizen J, remember I showed you the app that my students made last semester, right? They had some really good questions that they needed to ask. Take some screen designs of samples, and then you should start thinking of your persona. The persona will be the person, the ideal user of your project. So I want you to type all those up. You don't have to watch the 49ers. They're going to lose anyways. Okay? Sharks maybe. Yes?
But what are the sample projects supposed to be? Are they like other websites that would look similar?
Yes. Sample designs are maybe designs that you want to emulate. These are the ones I like. These are the ideas I'm going to take.
How many?
I don't know, as many as you need. I don't have a solution to that. When I had to, you know, when we were working on this several years ago, again I had McDonald's, Epson, and Nikon were the three that we were looking at to take ideas from and incorporate them into this design. So I had screenshots of all three of them, and we were talking about all three of them and what we liked about each one.
So I should put a screenshot.
Yeah, I want to see you take screenshots. You can take things with your camera.
And when I want to emulate the background into it.
Well, I think what you're looking for right now is these ideas from this site are the ideas I want to implement. Not necessarily the design as much, but maybe more ideas. This is more why this week. Next week you might make different screenshots of what. So think more why. I think I had Nikon was a good example of this because, you know, Nikon didn't really sell on their website. Nikon forwarded you to a dealer. Right? Here's the local photo shop down the street. You can go buy a Nikon camera, but they don't really sell through Nikon.com. The purpose of Nikon.com is not to sell, it's to give you information about the product. Hence, my website here, this website, is not here to sell you a product. It's to give you information. Hey, this is what the product does. This is why you would buy it.
Like, should you write down what you want to emulate about those designs?
Sure. That's fine.
And what is that first overview thing?
The overview is the why. This is a general statement of current design and industry. For example, this is a website, you would list the purpose of the website. Yeah, I wrote that kind of weak. What market is it in? I think the why is what market it is. I'm into selling. I'm into providing information. Please excuse me there. So I want you to write a general. Why does this website exist if it's a website? If it's an app, why does the app exist? What is it? What is it providing?
So if it's a website, you just follow the instructions and come after this is a general statement of design and industry.
Yeah. More general. I don't need very much detail right now. I'm looking for you to come up with why. Okay, speaking of why.